Imagine this. It's been exactly 6 months since surgery. The standard calendar says the rehabilitation window is closed, so the athlete steps into the blocks, sets, and fires. But the biological clock doesn't care about the calendar. Modern sports science shows that using elapsed time as the primary metric for recovery is a dangerously inaccurate predictor of an athlete's physical readiness. Removing the pain is only the first step. Clearing an athlete to play based on how they feel frequently results in a sharp statistical decline, or worse, a catastrophic re-injury. There is a vast, often misunderstood gap in the medical system between traditional clinical physical therapy, which restores basic daily movement, and the intense, explosive demands of actual field competition. This timeline illustrates the framework Karlos sports science uses to bridge that exact gap. Instead of guessing, they rely on a strict criteria-based continuum. An athlete cannot progress from basic movement and core conditioning to heavy load performance testing until they satisfy specific criteria. Real athletic recovery means stepping away from timelines. You have to prove the body's readiness through objective, measurable milestones at every stage of the healing process. Fixing an injury starts by looking past the obvious. If a joint hurts, the problem might originate elsewhere. The first step in the Karlos continuum requires tracking down the hidden root cause of the mechanical failure. Therapists map out the athlete's entire kinetic chain. They look for invisible compensations in how the foot strikes, how the pelvis tilts, or how the spine rotates to absorb shock. Once they pinpoint the breakdown, they initiate the corrective phase. This relies on targeted manual therapies, ultrasound, and cold modalities to drive out localized inflammation and get the joints moving naturally again. Those early diagnostics then dictate a highly specific exercise prescription. The objective is to isolate and strengthen the exact muscle groups that cause the imbalance in the first place. Take a tennis player struggling with a weak serve. By analyzing their biomechanical profile, therapists can find a deficit in shoulder external rotation and correct that specific micro-inefficiency to increase racket acceleration. Getting rid of the pain is merely the prerequisite. Correcting the underlying mechanical flaws is what keeps the injury from returning. This brings us to Phase 3, reconditioning. At this stage, the clinical focus shifts entirely away from the injured tissue and centers directly on the athlete's total load tolerance. Therapists systematically expose the body to the precise, explosive forces and heavy workload volumes it will encounter during live competition. Progressing through this phase leaves zero room for human guesswork. You either hit the objective data thresholds, or you remain in reconditioning. To capture this data, Karlos relies on equipment like dual force plates. The system records how efficiently tendons absorb and release kinetic energy upon impact. The margins for passing are incredibly tight. To clear this phase, an athlete must demonstrate less than a 10% asymmetry on landing tests and prove greater than 90% limb strength symmetry using isokinetic dynamometry. Hitting these numbers is a mathematical requirement. Proving you can generate and absorb force safely is how you earn the right to step back onto the field. True recovery follows a tiered progression. It advances from basic participation and sport readiness to the ultimate objective, a full return to performance. Many athletes appear recovered on paper, but suffer from lingering neuromuscular deficits. Once they get back into live gameplay, these invisible weaknesses cause a sudden, sharp drop in their actual match statistics. To prevent this drop-off, Karlos integrates advanced monitoring long after the athlete is cleared. This digital interface tracks an athlete's physical load via GPS during live practices. By analyzing continuous data on sprint counts and decelerations, the team detects microscopic signs of fatigue well before they manifest as pain. If a player's sprint volume drops unexpectedly, the medical team sees it immediately. They can instantly dial back the athlete's training load, pulling an overexerted body back from the brink of a secondary injury. Karlos sports science treats recovery as an ongoing, data-driven science. By continuously tracking and adjusting to the body's limits, they ensure athletes return stronger, they become noticeably faster, and more resilient than ever before.